The shout heard across the lobby. "I said get out of that chair, now!" The words boomed across the Halifax Central Bank lobby, silencing every conversation. At the center, Victoria Harrington, the white, sharply dressed bank manager, mid-40s, blonde bob, tailored navy suit, stood with her arms crossed, her voice like a whip. Her glare was fixed on Amara Johnson, a young black woman in her early 20s, seated calmly in one of the sleek waiting chairs near the VIP counter. The entire room froze. Tellers stopped mid-transaction. 2 customers pulled out their phones. Even the security guard shifted uneasily. Victoria's voice cut through the tension again, louder this time. "Victoria," snapping. "You can't sit there. This area is for VIP clients only. People like you wait outside. Know your place." Gasps rippled through the lobby. Amara, calm as stone, slowly lifted her gaze to meet Victoria's icy stare. Her voice was soft, measured, but it carried. "Amara, you're making a mistake." The silence deepened. Every eye turned toward them, waiting to see who would move first. The whole lobby watches. The bank lobby stayed frozen in silence, Victoria's words still echoing. Amara didn't flinch. She sat straight, her hands resting calmly on her lap, while the entire room's attention locked on her. 2 tellers leaned toward each other, whispering under their breath. "She's about to get thrown out. What's she even doing here?" A middle-aged businessman in a tailored suit sitting nearby frowned, his arms crossed as he watched the scene unfold. 2 younger customers quietly lifted their phones, cameras rolling. Victoria took a deliberate step closer, her heels clicking like a judge's gavel on the marble floor. She tilted her head, her voice dripping with scorn, loud enough for the room to hear. "Victoria," coldly, "this is a prestigious branch, not a bus stop. You either move to the public waiting area, or I'll have you escorted out in front of everyone." Gasps spread again. Amara's calm gaze stayed fixed on Victoria. Her reply was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. "Amara, if I stand up, you'll regret it." A sharp murmur rippled through the lobby. The security guard at the door exchanged a glance with a teller, both unsure if they should intervene yet. Even the businessman leaned forward slightly, sensing there was more to this woman than Victoria realized. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made everyone hold their breath, waiting for what would happen next. The first public threat. Victoria crossed her arms, her nails tapping against her sleeve, her posture screaming superiority. The entire lobby was watching now, every teller, every customer, even the guard near the door who had subtly edged closer. Victoria's lips curled into a sharp smile. Her voice rose, slicing through the murmurs like a blade. "Victoria," snapping. "Last chance. Leave quietly, or I'll make sure security drags you out by your arm, and everyone here will watch." Whispers turned into soft gasps. One woman in line whispered to her friend, "She's really going to throw her out, in front of everyone?" Her friend nodded nervously, pulling her phone up to start recording. Amara didn't move. Her calmness almost felt unnatural in the chaos around her. She tilted her head slightly, her voice so even it felt like a warning. "Amara, call whoever you want. But once they're here, things won't go the way you expect." Victoria chuckled bitterly, rolling her eyes. She gestured sharply toward the guard at the door, her heels clicking as she spun to face him. "Victoria," commanding. "Get over here. Escort her out. I don't care how you do it." The guard hesitated, glancing between the 2 women. His brow furrowed as he muttered under his breath, "Something doesn't feel right about this." Meanwhile, the businessman in the tailored suit quietly took out his phone, not to record, but to type a quick message. His expression stayed calm, but there was a knowing look in his eyes, as if he already understood something that no one else did. The entire bank was silent, waiting to see what would happen when the guard took his first step forward. The guard hesitates. The security guard, a tall man in his late 30s with a serious expression, slowly approached. The click of his shoes echoed against the marble floor, but his steps were hesitant. All eyes followed him. The whispers grew louder. She's really going to be dragged out. This is going to end up online, I swear. One teenager whispered to her friend, phone up and recording. This is already online. Look, 200 people are watching my live. Victoria's sharp gaze swept across the room, catching the phones pointed in her direction. She raised her chin, unfazed, and said loudly, as if performing for the crowd. Victoria, mocking. Go ahead and record. Everyone will see what happens when rules are broken. She turned back to Amara, her voice dripping with contempt. Victoria, cold. Stand up now. This isn't a charity, and you're wasting everyone's time. Amara didn't move. Her calm eyes stayed fixed on Victoria's, her tone barely above a whisper but powerful enough to make the guard pause. Amara. If you touch me, you'll regret it more than anyone else in this room. The guard stopped mid-step. He glanced at Victoria, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The businessman in the corner finally spoke, his voice steady but quiet. Businessman. Victoria, maybe you should double-check her file before you make a bigger scene. Victoria whipped her head toward him, her irritation flaring. Victoria, snapping. Mind your business, Mr. Carlyle. This doesn't concern you. But the crowd noticed. Phones kept rolling. And for the first time, Victoria's confidence wavered just slightly. The first cliffhanger. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin, irritated line as she faced Amara again. The lobby was so quiet that the faint hum of the ceiling lights could be heard. Every customer, every teller, even the guard, waiting to see who would make the next move. Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice but making sure it still carried. Victoria, I see. Fine. Stay seated. But in 60 seconds, security will have you on the pavement. You'll never set foot in this branch again. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman near the counter whispered, clutching her purse. She's actually throwing her out, like a criminal. Amara finally shifted. She reached into her bag, slow, deliberate, and pulled out her phone. Her calm voice cut through the tension, each word like a quiet warning. Amara. You've got 1 minute, Victoria. Use it wisely. The businessman across the room leaned forward, his brows lifting slightly as if he already knew what was coming. The guard froze mid-step, his eyes darting from Amara to Victoria. Victoria, oblivious to the growing unease around her, laughed mockingly, throwing her hand toward the door. Victoria, loudly. Your time's up, sweetheart. Let's show you the exit. Before anyone could react, Amara's phone buzzed once on the armrest. And her calm gaze locked on Victoria with an almost chilling certainty. The screen faded to black for a moment as the suspense hangs heavy in the air. Whispers turned to doubt. The tension was so thick it felt like the whole bank was holding its breath. Phones were still raised, recording every second. 2 customers near the entrance whispered to each other, their voices barely audible. Why is she so calm? She's not even scared. Maybe she's someone important? The businessman in the corner, Mr. Carlyle, leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. His eyes didn't leave Amara. A faint, knowing smile touched his lips, as if he'd already figured something out that no one else had. Victoria, however, seemed oblivious to the shift. She stood tall, chin up, radiating smug authority. Her voice cut across the whispers like a knife. Victoria, mocking. You can glare all you want, sweetheart, but this is my bank, and my rules. People like you don't walk in here and get VIP treatment. The guard shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tightening. He muttered under his breath, just loud enough for the nearby teller to hear. She shouldn't be saying that out loud, not with cameras everywhere. But Victoria didn't care. She turned back to Amara, her smirk widening. Victoria, taunting. Last warning. Stand up, or I'll call the police myself. Let's see how fast you run when they arrive. Amara finally leaned forward slightly, her calm demeanor never breaking. Her voice was soft, but every syllable carried like a quiet threat. Amara. You really don't know who you're talking to, do you? The lobby erupted in whispers again, tension peaking. For the first time, Victoria's confident stance faltered, her eyes narrowing, her head tilting as doubt began to creep in. The businessman glanced at his phone, typing quickly, before slipping it back into his pocket with a faint nod. Something was brewing, and everyone could feel it. The call for backup. Victoria's jaw tightened, but she forced a smirk back onto her face, trying to mask the flicker of doubt. Her heels clicked sharply as she spun toward the reception desk, grabbing the phone with a snap. She didn't lower her voice, she wanted the whole lobby to hear. Victoria, loudly, into the phone. Security? Get 2 more guards down here. We have someone refusing to leave. Make it quick. The whispers grew louder, phones zoomed in, and a few customers exchanged uneasy glances. One man muttered to his wife. She's really going overboard, it's just a chair. His wife shook her head, whispering back. No, something's off. Look at how calm that girl is. Amara sat still, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She didn't even look at Victoria. Instead, she glanced at her phone again, typing something quickly before placing it face down on the armrest. A tiny, almost invisible smile tugged at her lips. The guard who had hesitated earlier took a slow step back toward the entrance, his brow furrowed. He whispered to a fellow teller. You know, her name sounds familiar. I swear I've heard it somewhere before. But Victoria didn't hear or didn't care. She slammed the phone back into its cradle, turning to face Amara with her arms crossed. Victoria, mocking. Enjoy your last few minutes sitting there, sweetheart. Security will have you on the pavement soon enough. Amara finally looked up, her gaze calm but cutting. Her voice was almost a whisper, but it carried through the silent lobby. Amara. The people you just called? They'll be working for me soon. The entire room went silent again. Even Victoria blinked, her smirk faltering for the first time as a flicker of confusion crossed her face. The businessman, still in his corner seat, let out a low chuckle under his breath, shaking his head as if he already knew how this was going to end. The crowd turns uneasy. The air in the lobby felt heavier with every second. Phones kept rolling, capturing every moment. Even the soft chime of the bank's clock sounded sharp in the silence. 2 teenage customers whispered to each other from the back of the line. Why is she not scared? She's just waiting. Maybe she's like a lawyer or something? Near the front desk, a mother clutched her son's shoulder, murmuring. Don't stare, honey. Something big is about to happen. Victoria, sensing the murmurs but refusing to lose control, straightened her blazer and raised her voice to reclaim the room. Victoria, firm, almost theatrical. Everyone listen up. This isn't a spectacle. This young woman is trespassing in a restricted VIP area. Our staff will handle it. But her tone carried a hint of strain now, her confidence beginning to crack. She gestured to the guard. Victoria, commanding. Stand by the door. When security arrives, escort her out immediately. No exceptions. The guard hesitated, his eyes darting toward Amara. He whispered under his breath to another staff member. She doesn't look like some random customer. Something's not right. Amara remained still, her posture flawless, her calmness only making the tension feel sharper. She glanced at Victoria, her voice smooth but with a cold edge. Amara. You keep talking like you're in charge, but that's about to change. A wave of whispers swept through the crowd, louder than before. One customer muttered to another. What if she's, like, the owner or something? The other scoffed but kept filming, whispering. If she is, that manager's career is over. Victoria's jaw tightened. She glanced toward the glass entrance as the distant sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the hallway, the additional guards she had called for were arriving. Her smirk returned, but her eyes betrayed the first flicker of unease. The reinforcements arrive. The lobby door swung open with a metallic clang. 2 additional security guards, both tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black uniforms, strode into the bank. Their boots echoed on the marble, each step pulling more attention from the customers. The entire lobby went silent again. Only the sound of quiet phone cameras clicking broke the stillness. Victoria's shoulders relaxed as the guards approached. Her voice carried a false confidence, dripping with satisfaction. Victoria, mocking. There we go. Let's put an end to this circus. Escort her out, and make it quick. The first guard looked from Victoria to Amara, his brow furrowing slightly. He didn't move immediately. Instead, he muttered quietly to his partner. You know, that name on the roster earlier, Johnson. Could it be that Johnson? His partner's eyes flicked to Amara, who sat perfectly still, her calm gaze unshaken despite the tension closing in around her. A man near the back of the lobby whispered to his wife, loud enough for others to catch. Why are the guards hesitating? Something's off. Victoria tapped her heel impatiently against the floor, her tone snapping like a whip. Victoria, sharp. What are you waiting for? Get her up. Now. But before the guards could take a step, Amara finally spoke again. Her tone was soft, even, but the weight of her words froze everyone in place. Amara. Touch me, and you'll find yourselves reporting to me by the end of the day. The line hit like a shockwave through the room. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. The crowd murmured louder now, some whispering, some outright gasping. Even Victoria blinked, her smirk faltering for the second time as confusion crept across her face. For the first time, she hesitated before speaking. Cracks in control. Victoria straightened her blazer and forced her smirk back, even though her eyes betrayed the first flicker of doubt. The whispers in the lobby were growing louder, phones still raised, cameras rolling. She turned to the guards, her tone sharp, almost defensive. Victoria, snapping. Don't just stand there. This is my branch, remove her. Now. But the first guard hesitated again, lowering his voice to his partner. Her last name's Johnson. I swear I saw it on the shareholder list in the briefing last month. His partner's brows lifted slightly. Both of them looked at Amara, calm, still, hands folded neatly in her lap like she had all the time in the world. The businessman in the corner, Mr. Carlyle, leaned forward slightly, speaking just loud enough for Victoria to hear. Mr. Carlyle, coolly. Victoria, are you absolutely certain you know who you're talking to? Victoria whipped her head toward him, her irritation boiling over. Victoria, snapping. Yes, I'm certain. This is a bank, not a community center. She has no right to be here. The businessman's eyes narrowed, but he stayed silent, a faint smirk playing on his lips as he leaned back. Meanwhile, the whispers in the crowd were shifting, no longer just gossip, but speculation. What if she actually owns the place? No way, but she isn't scared at all. If she does, this is going viral tonight. Victoria turned back to Amara, her voice rising slightly, trying to reassert control. Victoria, taunting. Enough games. Either stand up now or I'll personally make sure you're escorted out and blacklisted from every branch in the city. Amara's gaze finally shifted, her eyes locking on Victoria's. Her tone stayed level, her words precise, but each one landed like a strike. Amara. In about 3 minutes, you won't have the power to blacklist anyone. The words rippled through the lobby like a silent bombshell. Even the guards stood still, their hands hovering near their belts, unsure whether to move or wait. And for the first time, a bead of sweat formed on Victoria's brow. The manager slips. The marble floor felt colder now, the silence heavier than before. Victoria's confidence was starting to crack, her hand twitched as she adjusted her blazer, her usual poise faltering just enough for everyone to notice. A customer near the back whispered to another. She's sweating, this is turning against her. The other nodded, phone still recording. She must realize she's in deep trouble now. Victoria took a deep breath, forcing her voice loud and firm again, though it wavered at the edges. Victoria, defiant. Everyone here can see she's refusing to follow the rules. This branch has standards, and I enforce them. But the crowd wasn't buying it anymore. A middle-aged woman near the front muttered just loud enough for others to hear. Standards? More like prejudice. The murmur spread, fueling me unease. The guards, still standing still, exchanged another quiet glance. One finally spoke to Victoria under his breath. Guard, quietly. Ma'am, maybe check her file before this escalates. Just to be safe. Victoria's glare shot to the guard, her voice dropping to a sharp whisper. I said, do your job, not question me. Meanwhile, Amara slowly picked up her phone again, tapping the screen once before placing it back down, face up on the chair's armrest. The screen lit up with a faint glow, and though no one could see what was on it, the act alone sent a wave of murmurs across the lobby. Amara, calmly. Your time is almost up, Victoria. The businessman smirked softly, shaking his head as he whispered to himself. She has no idea what's about to hit her. Victoria noticed the smirk and snapped toward him. Victoria, irritated. And what are you smiling at? Mr. Carlyle simply leaned back, his voice low but cutting. Let's just say, I wouldn't be standing where you were when that phone rings. Victoria froze for a split second, her throat tightening, but she quickly turned back, hiding the flicker of fear behind another brutal smirk. The entire lobby waited, the tension coiling tighter with every passing second. The lobby turns. The murmurs in the lobby grew louder, no longer hushed gossip but clear voices questioning Victoria's behavior. Phones hovered higher now, every angle capturing her tightening jaw and brutal smirk. A man near the teller line shook his head and said clearly, loud enough for others to hear. If this ends up online, she's finished. You can't talk to people like that these days. Another customer, a young woman, whispered to her friend. Look how calm she is. She's not scared because she doesn't have to be. The whispers began to ripple into agreement across the room. Even the tellers, who had stayed silent, were now exchanging looks of discomfort, one nervously biting her lip as she whispered to her colleague. She's going too far, again. Victoria felt the weight of their stares and snapped, her tone rising defensively. Victoria, snapping. Enough with the chatter. This is my branch, and I will not be undermined by gossip or... She stopped mid-sentence as her eyes caught Amara's phone screen lighting up again on the armrest. A faint notification appeared, though no one could read it from a distance. Amara didn't even look at it. She simply crossed one leg over the other and leaned back slightly, her calm voice cutting through the rising tension. Amara. They're almost here. The guards stiffened. One of them quietly muttered to the other. Who is they? She talks like someone important's coming. The businessman in the corner, Carlyle, smirked wider, his arms folded as he muttered just loud enough for the people near him to hear. Victoria has no clue she's playing with fire. Victoria spun toward him, her composure breaking, snapping. Victoria, angry. You seem to know something, Carlyle. Care to share it with the rest of us? Carlyle met her glare with a cool, unbothered expression. I don't need to. You'll find out, in about a minute. The whispers rose to a low roar now, everyone sensing the shift. Victoria's hands clenched into fists at her sides as the sound of distant footsteps and voices began echoing from the entrance. The sound of arrival. The distant echo of footsteps from the hallway grew louder, steady and deliberate. Everyone in the lobby turned their heads toward the glass entrance. A teller whispered to another behind the counter. That doesn't sound like normal security. Those are dress shoes, not boots. The other swallowed hard, glancing nervously at Amara. Who is she? She's just waiting for them. Victoria straightened her posture, her jaw tightening, trying to mask the unease creeping up her spine. Her voice was sharper now, but it cracked slightly as she spoke. Victoria, to everyone. Relax. It's just backup. We'll have this disruptive scene over within a moment. The guards at her side exchanged a quiet glance but said nothing. One leaned closer to his partner and muttered. What if those footsteps aren't our people? The murmur spread through the customers again. She's too calm. This feels different. Bet those footsteps aren't coming for us. They're coming for her. Amara finally uncrossed her legs and sat forward, her calm gaze fixed on the entrance. She didn't smile, but her voice carried clearly, each word precise. Amara. Victoria. I told you. You had 1 minute. At that exact moment, the lobby doors opened with a quiet whoosh. The sound of polished shoes on marble filled the space as two sharply dressed individuals, a man and a woman, both in black tailored suits, entered the lobby. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The tellers went still. The guards froze where they stood. And Victoria, for the first time, took a small, involuntary step back. The suited man's eyes swept the room, landing squarely on Amara. Without a word, he began walking toward her, his colleague close behind. The approach. The man and woman in black suits moved with quiet authority across the marble floor, their steps echoing in the tense silence. Every customer, every teller, every guard watched in dead silence. The woman, carrying a slim black folder, glanced briefly at Victoria but didn't break stride. Her expression was neutral, professional, but her eyes were cold. A nervous teller whispered to another. Those aren't bank security, they're corporate. The other nodded, whispering back. Corporate doesn't just walk in unless it's serious. Victoria swallowed hard, forcing her voice to sound steady as she addressed them. Victoria, sharply. Excuse me, who are you? This is my branch. I'm handling this. The man didn't even turn his head toward her. Instead, he walked directly to Amara, stopping just beside her seat. He gave a small, respectful nod. Man in suit, calmly. Miss Johnson, everything is prepared. Would you like us to proceed now, or wait until the area is cleared? The entire lobby gasped audibly. Whispers erupted instantly. Miss Johnson? They know her? Wait, is she the owner? Victoria froze in place, blinking rapidly as the weight of the name hit her. Her voice, suddenly unsure, cracked as she stammered. Victoria, quietly. Miss Johnson? Who exactly are you? Amara finally stood, rising slowly from the chair with a quiet grace. Her gaze leveled on Victoria, her tone calm but firm. Amara. You'll find out soon enough. But for now, I suggest you keep your distance. The corporate woman opened the black folder, glancing at Amara for confirmation before speaking aloud. Corporate woman. By order of the board, all operations in this branch are temporarily halted pending review, effective immediately. The crowd gasped louder, phones lifted higher, and the guards instinctively stepped back. Victoria's face drained of color as she stuttered, unable to find words. For the first time, the entire lobby wasn't looking at Amara anymore, they were staring at Victoria. The shift of power. The lobby felt electric, every whisper, every camera, every breath drawn heavy with anticipation. All eyes were now on Victoria, her once certain posture unraveling as the realization began to sink in. The suited man turned slightly toward the staff and customers, his voice firm but even. Man in suit. For your safety, please remain where you are. This will only take a few minutes. The guards, unsure of what to do, glanced at each other before instinctively stepping back toward the walls, giving Amara and the suited pair space. The murmurs from the customers grew louder. She really is someone powerful. That manager is done for, this is going to be everywhere online. Victoria's mouth opened, but only a stammer came out. I don't understand. She's just a customer. She doesn't even. The corporate woman snapped the folder shut, cutting her off with a cold, professional tone. Corporate woman. Miss Johnson isn't just a customer. She's a principal shareholder in Halifax Financial. Her presence here is not to be questioned. The words struck like thunder through the lobby. Gasps, murmurs, and phones clicking filled the air. The businessman, Mr. Carlyle, let out a soft chuckle and muttered to the man beside him. I knew it. She's the one who signs their paychecks. Amara stepped closer to Victoria now, each heel click on the marble sharp and deliberate. Her calm gaze locked onto the trembling manager as she spoke softly, but with authority that cut deeper than any yell. Amara. Victoria, all morning, you made assumptions. You raised your voice, humiliated me, and treated me like I didn't belong here. Now, it's time for you to understand just how wrong you were. Victoria's throat tightened. Her hands twitched at her sides as she searched for words, but none came. The entire lobby waited in stunned silence, sensing that the real reckoning was about to begin. The public reckoning begins. Victoria's voice finally returned, but it cracked, barely more than a whisper. Victoria, stammering. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know who you were. The corporate man took a step closer, his voice calm but firm. Man in suit. It doesn't matter if you knew. Your conduct is unacceptable, and the board will see the recordings. At the word recordings, a wave of murmurs swept through the lobby. Customers instinctively lifted their phones higher, some even live streaming. One whispered loudly to another. She's finished. That footage will be everywhere by tonight. Amara didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She stepped closer to Victoria, her calm tone carrying across the room. Amara, you thought yelling would make you powerful. That belittling someone would prove you're in charge. But power isn't how loud you speak, it's how many people listen when you're silent. The words sank like stones into the quiet air. Victoria's knees seemed to weaken slightly. She glanced around the lobby, every face watching, none sympathetic. Even her own staff wouldn't meet her eyes. The corporate woman pulled out her phone, tapping the screen before looking at Victoria. Corporate woman. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending full investigation. HR will contact you by the end of the day. Security will escort you out. Victoria's face went pale. Her lips trembled as she tried to protest. Victoria, weakly. Please. I can explain, Amara raised her hand slightly, silencing her without a word. Her voice was steady, deliberate. Amara. You've said enough today, Victoria. Now, you'll be quiet and listen. The crowd was completely still, phones still rolling, as the shift in power became undeniable. The lobby erupts. The moment Amara's words settled, the entire lobby seemed to exhale at once, a rush of whispers, murmurs, and quiet gasps filling the air. A man near the door, phone still recording, whispered loudly enough for others to hear. She just silenced her like a kid. This is wild. A young woman clutching her purse whispered to her friend. She's not even yelling. That's what makes it scarier, she's just in control. Even the guards, who had been stiff by the wall, exchanged uneasy glances. One muttered quietly. I've worked here 5 years, never seen anyone talk to Victoria like that. Victoria's lips parted as if to defend herself again, but her words caught in her throat. The weight of dozens of phones pointed her way froze her in place. Her once perfectly controlled posture now trembled under the eyes of every customer and staff member. Amara slowly turned toward the bystanders, her calm voice reaching across the room. Amara, I want everyone here to understand something. This bank doesn't belong to people like Victoria, it belongs to people who respect others. And from today forward, it will be run that way. The lobby erupted into murmurs of agreement. One middle-aged man muttered as he filmed. This is history. I can't wait to post this. Victoria's breathing quickened. Her voice, shaky, finally broke the silence. Victoria, pleading. Miss Johnson. I didn't know. Please, I can fix this, just give me a chance. Before she could finish, the corporate man stepped forward, his voice as cold as the marble beneath their feet. Man in suit. Miss Harrington, your chance was the moment you opened your mouth. Now, your only task is to leave, quietly, before this gets worse for you." The crowd grew louder, phone still recording, as Victoria's face turned white. Her hands trembled as she looked at Amara, but Amara's calm, unblinking stare told her everything. Her authority was gone. The walk of shame. The lobby felt charged, like a storm about to break. Victoria's hands trembled as she glanced toward the exit, the same exit she had threatened Amara with just minutes ago. Whispers cut through the tension, louder now. "She's getting thrown out of her own branch." Poetic justice, she told that girl to know her place. "Look at all these phones, this is going viral tonight." The corporate woman gestured toward the guards, her voice calm but firm. "Corporate woman, escort Miss Harrington to the HR office. She will not return to this branch until the investigation is complete." The guards, who just moments ago were waiting for Victoria's orders, now turned to her. One of them cleared his throat quietly. "Guard, gently. Ma'am, please come with us." The irony hung heavy in the air. Victoria's eyes darted around the lobby, looking for any ally, but every staff member avoided her gaze. Even the tellers who once smiled at her now stood rigid, silent, waiting for her to leave. Victoria tried to speak, her voice cracking. "Victoria, pleading. Miss Johnson. I was just doing my job." Amara's calm, even tone cut her off like a blade. "Amara, your job was to treat every person here with respect. Instead, you chose to humiliate and threaten someone you assumed didn't belong. Now, you'll answer for it." The whispers swelled, filling the air like applause without sound. A man near the corner, still filming, muttered, "She deserves every second of this." Victoria's shoulders sagged, her once commanding posture now shrunken and small. Under dozens of watching eyes and recording phones, she slowly began the walk of shame toward the exit. Each step she took echoed on the marble floor, the same sharp sound her heels made earlier when she marched toward Amara with confidence. Now, every click was a reminder of how far she'd fallen. The fall. Victoria's heels clicked softly on the marble as she walked toward the exit, flanked by the two guards. Her once commanding stride was now slow, uncertain, each step echoing louder than the last in the silent lobby. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't need to. The silence, broken only by whispers and phone cameras, was humiliation enough. A woman near the front whispered to her friend. "She wanted to make a scene, now the whole world's going to see it." Another customer muttered under his breath as he filmed. "She told that girl to know her place, now she's finding out hers." Victoria's shoulders slumped as she glanced over her shoulder, her eyes meeting Amara's calm, unshaken gaze. For a split second, she looked like she might beg again, but Amara's steady stare told her there was no point. As Victoria reached the glass doors, the corporate man's voice rang out, firm and final. "Man in suit. Miss Harrington, you will be escorted to HR for immediate processing. Board representatives will contact you within the hour." Victoria didn't respond. Her head lowered slightly as the guards opened the doors, leading her outside. The whoosh of the glass doors closing behind her felt like a verdict slamming shut. Inside, the whispers grew louder. One man near the back chuckled softly, muttering as he stopped recording. "That's going to be trending before dinner." All eyes turned back toward Amara now, the woman who had sat silently while Victoria's power crumbled. She remained standing, poised, not even glancing toward the doors Victoria had just been dragged through. Instead, her eyes swept the lobby, calm but commanding. The room falls quiet. As the glass doors shut behind Victoria, the lobby's whispers slowly faded, replaced by a heavy, expectant silence. Every eye turned to Amara, who stood in the center of the room, calm as ever. The corporate woman stepped slightly aside, her posture deferential, as if waiting for Amara to take charge. Even the guards, the same ones who had been prepared to drag her out earlier, now stood still, heads lowered slightly, waiting for direction. The businessman, Mr. Carlyle, leaned back in his chair, a faint smile on his face as he murmured, "Now the real boss speaks." Amara let the silence linger for a moment longer, letting the tension settle like dust after a storm. Her gaze swept the room, over the customers, the tellers, even the nervous junior employee who had hesitated earlier when Victoria ordered him to act. Finally, her voice filled the space, calm but carrying unmistakable authority. Amara, what you all witnessed today is not how this bank, or any branch of Halifax Financial, will operate moving forward. Respect is not optional. It's the foundation of everything we do. A few murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The young teller who had hesitated earlier straightened slightly, relief washing over his face. One customer whispered to another, "She talks like she owns the place, because she does." Amara's eyes shifted toward the front desk, locking on the nervous junior employee. Amara, calmly. "And you, for stepping back when things felt wrong, and not blindly following. I saw that. Expect a call from my office. We need people like you in leadership, not fear." The teller's eyes widened, a quiet thank you escaping his lips. A subtle but audible ripple of approval spread through the lobby. Amara took a single step forward, her heels echoing softly as the room hung on her next words. The statement. The lobby stood silent, every camera still recording, every customer waiting for Amara's next words. She took a deep breath, her gaze moving slowly across the room, from the tellers behind the counter to the customers still holding their phones. Her tone was calm, measured, but carried a weight that commanded attention. Amara, you all came here today expecting business as usual. But what happened wasn't business, it was abuse of power. And I will not let that define this bank, or the people who trust it. A middle-aged man near the front nodded quietly, lowering his phone as he muttered to the person next to him. She's not just a boss, she sounds like a leader. The corporate woman stood a step behind Amara, her posture formal but deferential, hands clasped as she listened. Even the guards stood straight, their expressions neutral but focused on her, as if waiting for instructions. Amara continued, her tone firm but never raised. Amara, no customer, no employee, no person will ever be treated as less because of how they look, where they're from, or what someone assumes about them. That ends today, not just here, but across every branch I oversee. The murmurs shifted, from whispers to quiet nods of agreement. One woman whispered to her daughter, "Remember this. This is how you deal with people who think they can walk over you." Amara paused, letting her words settle before adding, Amara, Halifax isn't just a name on a sign. It's a promise of fairness, of integrity, and of respect. And I promise you, anyone who breaks that promise will answer to me. The lobby remained still, but the tension was replaced by a strange calm, a collective understanding that something important had just shifted. Setting things right. Amara's gaze drifted toward the row of tellers behind the counter. Most stood stiff, still unsure if they should speak, but one, the junior teller who had hesitated earlier, met her eyes nervously. Amara gave him a small, reassuring nod before addressing everyone again. Amara, I noticed something while all of this unfolded. Some of you watched in silence, afraid to intervene. But some of you knew this wasn't right and tried to act. Those who did will be recognized. The junior teller's face lit with relief, his shoulders loosening slightly as a few customers murmured approvingly. One man near the lobby doors muttered to his wife, "She's rewarding integrity, not just status." That's different. Amara gestured subtly toward the corporate woman. Amara, make a note. This teller will be transferred to leadership training. We need people who think before they follow. The corporate woman nodded, jotting a quick note into her folder. The other tellers exchanged glances, some clearly uneasy, others relieved that real accountability had just landed in their branch. Amara's tone softened slightly as she addressed the customers. Amara, and to those of you who had to watch that display, I apologize on behalf of this company. Your trust matters, and I promise you, things will be different moving forward. A faint ripple of approval passed through the lobby. The businessman, Mr. Carlyle, gave a small nod of respect, muttering, "Finally, someone running this place like it should be run." The tension was no longer sharp, but the room stayed silent, waiting for Amara's next move, sensing there was still more to come. Speaking to the cameras. Amara's eyes shifted toward the cluster of customers holding up their phones, capturing every moment. The red recording lights reflected faintly off the marble floor, their silent blinking a reminder that this entire encounter was already spreading beyond the bank's walls. She didn't flinch. Instead, she turned slightly to face them, her voice calm but resolute. "Amara, I see some of you recording. That's fine, keep recording. What happened here today isn't just about me. It's about every person who's ever been told they don't belong in a place they have every right to be." The phone stayed steady, a few lowering slightly as her tone shifted from corporate to personal. A young woman filming whispered softly to her friend. "She's not even worried about going viral, she wants it." Amara took a step forward, her heels quiet against the marble, as she continued. "Amara, if this video goes out, let it serve as a message. Status, titles, and suits mean nothing if you can't treat people with basic decency. And for anyone who feels powerless in moments like this, remember that calm and truth carry more weight than any threat ever will." A murmur of quiet approval rippled through the lobby. The junior teller, now standing a little taller, whispered to the teller beside him. "She's not just cleaning house. She's setting the tone for everyone watching." The businessman, Carlyle, smirked faintly, his voice low but audible. "That video's not just going viral, it's going to make her the face of this company overnight." Amara glanced back toward the corporate pair, nodding once, as if signaling that the next phase was about to begin. Final directives. The lobby, still buzzing with quiet murmurs and recording phones, grew silent again as Amara turned back to the corporate pair. Her voice lowered, calm but firm, carrying across the marble floor like a command. "Amara, make sure the footage from today is sent to the board directly. I want a full report on how often this branch has faced complaints like this, and how many were ignored." The corporate woman nodded sharply, already typing into her tablet. The suited man added quietly, "We'll have a report ready by morning, Miss Johnson. HR has already been notified." Amara's gaze shifted toward the remaining staff, the tellers, the junior employees, even the floor manager hiding nervously by the counters. "Amara," calmly, "for those of you who work here, this is your chance to decide what kind of branch this will be. If you're here to serve with respect and integrity, you'll have my full backing. If not, today won't be the last time you see me." The teller straightened instantly, nodding. One whispered to another, barely above a breath. "She means it. This isn't a speech, it's a warning." Turning back to the customers, Amara's tone softened slightly. "Amara, and for all of you watching, I'll make one thing clear. This branch will stay open, but it will be run differently from now on. No one will ever be told to know their place in a Halifax bank again." A soft wave of approval swept through the room. Phones lowered slightly as some customers exchanged nods, while others whispered, "This is the kind of person who should be running things." Amara exhaled softly, her calm composure never faltering, as she prepared to bring the encounter to a close. The closing words. The tension in the air had shifted, no longer sharp or hostile, but heavy with respect and quiet awe. Amara took a final glance around the lobby, her eyes meeting the customers, the staff, and the lingering security guards one by one. Her voice, calm and steady, carried a weight that made every whisper fall silent. "Amara, what happened here today isn't just a lesson for one person. It's a reminder to everyone watching, online or in this room, that respect isn't something you earn by status. It's something you owe to every human being, every time." She let the words sit for a beat, her gaze landing briefly on the glass doors where Victoria had been escorted out just minutes earlier. "Amara, firmly. If anyone here, staff, customer, or manager, ever forgets that again, you won't just be spoken to. You'll be replaced." A murmur of quiet approval rolled through the crowd. Phones slowly lowered, customers exchanging glances as the atmosphere softened. The junior teller, now standing straighter, whispered to himself, "She turned this whole place upside down, in one afternoon." The corporate man stepped forward slightly, his tone respectful. "Man in suit. Miss Johnson, your vehicle is ready when you are." Amara nodded once, her expression calm as she offered a final glance toward the crowd. Her words, soft but commanding, closed the moment. Amara, remember this day. Halifax isn't just a bank, it's a promise. And from today forward, it will keep that promise. The lobby stayed silent, almost reverent, as Amara turned and began walking toward the doors, the corporate pair following closely behind. The departure begins. Amara's heels echoed softly against the marble as she moved toward the exit, every step measured, deliberate. The corporate pair followed closely, one holding the glass door open as the other kept their eyes on the stunned lobby. The customers, still holding their phones, whispered among themselves. She didn't raise her voice once, and still shut it all down. Victoria looked untouchable before, now she's gone like nothing. One of the tellers, the junior employee Amara had singled out earlier, muttered under his breath as he lowered his head respectfully. That's the kind of leadership this place needed all along. As Amara reached the glass doors, the businessman, Mr. Carlyle, finally stood from his chair. He gave her a respectful nod and said just loud enough for the room to hear. Mr. Carlyle, calmly. Miss Johnson, it was overdue. This branch will be better because of you. Amara offered him a faint nod in return but said nothing, her calm demeanor unwavering. She paused at the door, turning back just once to address the lobby, her tone soft yet commanding. Amara. Remember, respect is not a courtesy. It's a standard. And anyone unwilling to uphold it has no place here. The words hung in the air, final and absolute, as she stepped through the doors. Outside, a sleek black SUV waited at the curb, its engine softly humming, ready to take her away. The moment the doors closed behind her, the lobby buzzed with murmurs again, every conversation centering around what had just unfolded. The aftermath inside. The glass doors closed with a soft thud, and the tension that had hung in the air seemed to release all at once. The lobby erupted into whispers and low conversations, the sound of dozens of voices overlapping like a quiet storm. A middle-aged man near the teller line shook his head, still holding his phone. That was unreal. She didn't yell once, and the whole place bowed to her. The teenager who had been live-streaming whispered to his friend, his phone still pointed at the door. My stream just hit 50,000 views. Everyone's asking who she is. Behind the counter, the junior teller glanced at his colleagues. They avoided his eyes, some embarrassed, others relieved. He finally spoke, his tone low but firm. Junior teller. She noticed who stood back, and who stayed silent. Things are going to change around here, whether people like it or not. One of the guards, now leaning against the wall, muttered to his partner. I've worked under Victoria for years. Thought she was untouchable. Guess we all just learned she wasn't. Mr. Carlyle, still near his chair, slid his phone into his pocket and straightened his jacket. He said calmly to no one in particular, his tone carrying across the lobby. Mr. Carlyle. The cameras caught everything. By tonight, every branch in the city will know exactly how this one fell back in line. The lobby quieted slightly at his words, the reality sinking in. This wasn't just a moment, it was the start of a shift for the entire bank. Outside the bank. Outside, the afternoon light reflected off the glass as Amara stepped onto the pavement, her posture still composed, unshaken by the chaos she had left behind. The sleek black SUV waited by the curb, its tinted windows gleaming. One of the corporate staff opened the back door for her, speaking softly. Corporate woman. Miss Johnson, everything is ready. The board has been informed, and the footage is already secured. Amara nodded slightly, her gaze briefly drifting back toward the glass doors where a few curious customers still peered out, phones raised to capture her departure. Across the street, two pedestrians who had stopped to watch murmured to each other. Who is she? They're treating her like royalty. Whoever she is, that manager looked like she saw a ghost when they showed up. As Amara stepped closer to the SUV, the suited man leaned in slightly, speaking low. Man in suit. The press has already caught wind of this. Would you like us to make a statement now, or wait until after the board meeting? Amara paused for a moment, one hand resting lightly on the open car door. Her voice was calm, deliberate. Amara. Not yet. Let them talk. By tonight, they'll know exactly who I am without me saying a word. She slid into the SUV, the corporate woman closing the door behind her as the vehicle's engine hummed softly. The car pulled away slowly, leaving the crowd outside whispering and speculating as the tinted windows faded into the distance. The buzz begins. Inside the lobby, customers were already lowering their phones and typing furiously. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation began hitting social media, captions flashing across screens. Bank manager snaps, backfires when she faces the owner. Halifax shareholder silently shuts down racist manager. One teenage customer whispered excitedly to her friend. My video already has 20,000 views in 5 minutes. It's blowing up. Outside, a man scrolling on his phone showed the video to his coworker. Look, it's already on 3 news feeds. They don't even know her full name yet, and it's trending. Meanwhile, in a private office across the city, Victoria sat slumped in a chair, her hands shaking slightly as she stared at her phone. Notifications were exploding on the screen, messages from HR, news headlines, even clips of herself screaming in the lobby. Her voice was barely audible as she muttered to herself. No, it can't spread like this. The HR officer across the desk spoke in a flat, professional tone. HR officer. Miss Harrington, you will remain suspended pending investigation. The board will review your case after seeing the footage, and the public reaction. Victoria's face went pale. She dropped her phone onto the desk, the sound echoing through the room. Her voice broke as she whispered again. She didn't even say who she was, and I'm already finished. Meanwhile, across every social feed, Amara's silent composure was becoming the centerpiece, clips of her calm warning spreading faster than Victoria's shouting. The reveal hits the news. Within hours, major news outlets picked up the footage. Screens across the city flashed headlines. Halifax financial shareholder humiliated by branch manager turns the tables. Viral video shows calm investor facing racism, manager escorted out. Clips of Amara's composed warnings, you'll regret it and your time is almost up, circulated across TikTok, Instagram, and news feeds. Her face, calm and unflinching, was everywhere. In a newsroom studio, an anchor looked into the camera, voice steady but intrigued. News anchor. The woman identified in the viral video as Amara Johnson is not just a shareholder. She is one of Halifax Financial's principal investors, with direct influence over multiple branches across London. A side panel showed the video looping silently, Amara seated, calm, as Victoria shouted above her. The caption read, "Respect isn't optional, Johnson steps in." Back in the corporate SUV, Amara sat quietly as the suited man handed her a tablet. On the screen, headlines scrolled by and a live news segment played. Man in suit, low voice. The board has already approved a public statement. By tomorrow morning, this will no longer be just a viral clip. It'll be a company-wide shift. Amara didn't look away from the screen. Her voice was calm, almost detached. Amara. Good. Let the world see it before we speak. Actions speak louder than press releases. Outside the tinted windows, a few bystanders spotted the SUV and whispered. That's her, the one from the video. She's not just rich. She's powerful. The car turned onto a quieter road, leaving the city buzz behind, but the storm she had started was only growing louder. The corporate response. By the next morning, Halifax Financial had issued a formal statement. Screens across news networks and social media feeds flashed the company logo beside bold words. Respect is non-negotiable. Halifax Financial takes immediate action. A company spokesperson appeared on a live broadcast, their tone calm but deliberate. Spokesperson, to camera. The incident captured yesterday does not reflect Halifax Financial's values. Effective immediately, the branch manager involved has been suspended pending termination review. And new mandatory training is being implemented across every location we operate. Clips of Amara's silent composure were playing beside the statement, the caption reading, Principal shareholder Amara Johnson leads change from within. Meanwhile, in her temporary HR holding office, Victoria sat at a desk, eyes red, scrolling through headlines. Each one seemed sharper than the last. Manager fired for humiliating investor. Viral video sparks company overhaul. Halifax shareholder seen as face of reform. Her phone buzzed, another email from HR, this time with the subject line, final review scheduled. Her shoulders slumped, and her voice broke in a whisper. Victoria, to herself. I built this branch, and now, I can't even step inside it. Across the city, Amara sat in a glass-walled conference room, the board gathered around her. They watched clips of the viral video on a projector. When it ended, one board member turned to her. Board member. You didn't even need to raise your voice, and now, every customer trusts you more than they ever trusted our ads. What's your next move? Amara's eyes stayed steady, her tone calm but decisive. Amara. We don't just repair the image. We change the culture, so this never happens again, anywhere. The board nodded silently, the weight of her words sinking in as the plan to reshape Halifax officially began. The ripple effect. Within days, Halifax branches across the city began to change. Training sessions were rolled out, new posters lined the walls, and staff meetings started with a simple, bold message on the screen. Respect is not optional. Clips of Amara's calm confrontation were still circulating online, now framed as a turning point for the company. News anchors praised the shift, while social media users reposted the video with captions like, "This is how you lead, quietly, but powerfully." Inside one branch, a teller whispered to another during a break. Did you see? Even our regional manager is walking softer these days. Her colleague nodded. No one wants to be the next Victoria. Meanwhile, Victoria sat in her apartment, blinds drawn, scrolling through her phone. Every headline, every post, felt like another blow. Johnson reshapes Halifax after viral clash. Former manager silent as shareholder becomes company face. She tossed the phone aside, burying her face in her hands. Her voice cracked in the quiet room. Victoria, to herself. One mistake, and I'm a ghost in my own career. Back in the Halifax boardroom, Amara reviewed reports on the changes. The corporate woman who had stood beside her during the incident stood by the door, holding a fresh stack of files. Corporate woman. Employee satisfaction is up 20% since the changes started. Clients are praising the transparency, and the footage is still trending. Amara's tone stayed calm, but her words were deliberate. Amara. Good. Let the video keep spreading. It's not just a story anymore, it's our new standard. The board members exchanged quiet nods, realizing that one confrontation had shifted the entire company's culture. The public address. A week later, Halifax Financial Headquarters held a live-streamed press event. Cameras from major networks lined the back of the sleek glass auditorium, while employees across every branch tuned in from screens. Amara stood at the podium, calm and poised, the Halifax logo glowing softly behind her. The room went silent as she began to speak, her tone measured but commanding. Amara. Many of you have seen the video. Yes, I was the woman sitting quietly while a manager chose prejudice over professionalism. And yes, I chose not to shout, because true power doesn't need to raise its voice. The audience, both in the room and watching remotely, stayed utterly still. Some employees leaned closer to their monitors as Amara's voice continued. Amara. That moment wasn't just about me. It was about the culture we allow, the behavior we ignore, and the people we fail to protect. From today forward, Halifax isn't just fixing a mistake. We're setting a new standard. She gestured subtly to the corporate woman at her side, who tapped a screen. Behind Amara, a large display lit up with a bold message. Every customer. Every employee. Equal respect. The crowd murmured softly in approval. Employees across branches whispered to each other through their headsets. She's making this permanent. This isn't just PR. Honestly, about time. Amara's eyes swept the room one last time as she concluded. Amara. This company doesn't just belong to executives, shareholders, or managers. It belongs to everyone who walks through our doors. And anyone who forgets that will no longer have a place here. Applause broke out in the auditorium, and in countless branches across the city, staff members clapped at their desks, feeling the weight of a new chapter beginning. The aftermath and reflection. Across Halifax branches, the change was visible. Managers greeted customers with genuine warmth, staff meetings focused on service, and new posters on every wall displayed Amara's words. Respect is not a courtesy. It's a standard. At one busy branch, a customer whispered to another as they waited in line. Feels different now, doesn't it? They actually care how they treat people. The other nodded. Guess one video can change a whole company. Meanwhile, in her quiet apartment, Victoria sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. The headlines had slowed, but they were still relentless. Johnson's leadership reshapes Halifax culture. Former branch manager silent after viral fallout. She stared at a message from a recruiter on her screen, a much lower-level job than she'd ever imagined taking. Her voice was barely a whisper as she muttered. Victoria, to herself. I thought shouting made me strong. Turns out, it just made me replaceable. Across the city, Amara sat in a quiet office, the evening light pouring through the window. The corporate woman from before stood by her side, handing her the latest report. Corporate woman. Complaints are down nearly 40% since the reforms began. Customers are calling Halifax one of the most trusted banks in the city. Amara nodded slightly, her tone calm but thoughtful. Amara. Good. But this can't just be about one moment or one branch. It has to last, long after the cameras move on. She turned toward the window, watching the city lights flicker as the day wound down. The viral clip that started it all continued to circulate online, now used not as scandal, but as a symbol of change. The closing resolve. Night settled over the city as Halifax headquarters glowed against the skyline, its glass windows reflecting the lights of passing cars. In the top-floor office, Amara stood by the window, looking out over the streets below. The faint sound of distant traffic hummed through the silence. The corporate man entered quietly, a tablet in hand. Man in suit, softly. The final numbers are in, Miss Johnson. Public trust is climbing, the board's backing your reforms, and the video has crossed 10 million views. Amara didn't turn immediately. Her voice, calm and deliberate, broke the quiet. Amara. Let it keep spreading. Not as a scandal, but as a standard. People need to know this isn't a one-time lesson, it's who we are now. The man nodded, setting the tablet on the desk before leaving the room. Amara remained by the window, her reflection faint in the glass as she spoke softly to herself. Amara, to herself. Respect isn't about titles, branches, or balance sheets. It's about how we treat people when no one's watching. And what we do when the world is. She turned from the window, her footsteps quiet as she crossed the office and picked up her coat. Before leaving, she paused at the door, glancing back at the empty room, her voice low but steady. Amara. This isn't just a company anymore. It's a message. And it starts with me. The lights dimmed as she stepped into the hallway. The camera lingered on the Halifax logo outside the office window, a silent reminder of the change she had set in motion. The screen faded to black as the soft hum of city sounds continued, and the final words appeared on screen. Respect is not a privilege. It's the standard.